Yeah, so it is a couple of weeks' time for Liverpool against Manchester United. And do you know, it felt the story this week was all about Manchester United winning back-to-back games, which they hadn't done since the back end of the 2023-24 season. And it felt like Amorim himself was talking up the fact they really need to go and win back-to-back games and putting pressure on the team. And then they go to Brentford and find themselves on the wrong end of another defeat. And you're wondering which way this story goes next. 33 games in charge now for Ruben Amorim at Manchester United. He's taken 34 points from those matches, 17 defeats, and a win ratio of just 27%. How does this play out, Andy?
For me, I think it's difficult to see it changing. They don't seem to have any kind of flexibility. I think he's made it really clear that they're not going to change formation.
Well, he keeps saying he needs time.
Yeah, but how long? You know, there's at some point. You know, I do believe in giving managers and coaches time, but I also believe that there has to be. You have to be seen to, or you have to be able to see the improvements. You have to be able to see, oh, well, I can see where they're going with this. And I don't really see that with Man United. I'm seeing the same things this season that I seen last season. I don't really see enough athleticism, particularly in the middle of the pitch. So to play the way that he wants them to play, you need to have really, really athletic midfielders. They don't seem to have that. And for me, the biggest thing about Man United is that there's no real fear factor about playing against them anymore. You know, Brentford, we played against Man United teams where, you know, you go into Old Trafford or even they're coming to you and you think, this is going to be a hell of a game today. It's not really that feeling. Teams are going into these games now thinking, we can beat these. And that's a big, big problem as well.
Yeah, I think, you know, they use the same shape as Crystal Palace, 5-2-3, and I just don't see them being a dominant force.
So what's the difference?
In that
Explain
shape.
to us what's the difference.
Well, Crystal Palace, the game is built on being solid and transitioning, and I don't see that being acceptable at Manchester United. I don't see you being able to be a Manchester United team that sits behind the ball and just transitions. You know, you need to go and dominate the game, and you need to take the ball. I don't think you see many top sides around Europe playing with a back five. Don't think you see many at all. So I'm still really interested to see how he does with it, because, you know, he's still obviously a work in progress. They've added a lot of players in the summer. But as Andy rightly says, there hasn't been real signs of improvement, and it looks tough for Amorim at the minute. You know, you see him having to do his press, and it looks like a real tough grind for him at this moment, which is not nice to see someone go through. And I hope he manages to turn it around, because I know he'll be giving every moment of every day to try and turn it around. And I hope they do, but it's going to need a big change for me. It's going to need something. They're going to need to put an unbelievable run of results together to start to convince people that this can turn into the Man United that we're used to seeing.
Well, it's Sunderland next, before the international break. Do managers sort of feel a bit more stress about these games going into an international break, especially if you're on a difficult run?
Yeah, I suppose it is a natural time for clubs to look to make changes. I love to see managers given time. As you know, I'm biased. I'm a manager, so I want them to all be given time and to be given the opportunity to show how good they are. But international breaks do tend to see more changes. And let's make no bones about it. Sunderland at home, newly promoted side, when you're Manchester United, with the run they're on, is going to be a must-win for them. It's a big, big game.
Sunderland might be thinking the same thing, though, might they?
Sunderland be looking forward to going there, you know. But
genuinely?
Yeah, but why not? You know, why not? They've got off to a great start. They've just got a first win this evening, away from home. They'll be relishing the chance to go there. And all the pressure is on Man United. Sunderland sat in a really nice position, really healthy position. They go there, the crowd will be a bit anxious, waiting on the team to kind of give them something. Sunderland can just go there and do what they've done tonight, sit in, make it really, really difficult, and hope that they can get something against. I think they'll be looking forward to the game.
Hey, let's start with the story that is dominating the back pages. It seems to be dominating the back pages probably every other week, and that's Manchester United's 3-1 defeat to Brentford. Miguel, you were there. Beyond belief is the headline on the back of the Sunday Mirror. Has it reached decision time, do you think, for Manchester United and their hierarchy and their head coach?
Well, the thing is, I would have said it reached decision time at any point over the last few months, arguably after the Europa League final. So I think what's most striking about this whole situation is how the extent of the misery and this level of performance, I mean, still they're on a points per game of 1, or just over 1, which is incredible, really. That this is just going on despite extra time in the training ground, despite signings. It's remarkable. And it's amazing. As I was going up to the game yesterday, I met someone connected to United who was talking about actually there's a bit of confidence about the place, because last week's performance, bar the typical attempt to kind of shoot themselves in the foot, was actually quite good against Chelsea. They dominated the first half, or they dominated the spell where they went 2-0 up and essentially won the game. But to go from that then to this, where Brentford bullied them, I think Keith Andrews completely had Amorim's number, and it was just such a regression even in this kind of back and forth. And yeah, I mean, where is the improvement? And the weird thing with Amorim is, I'm sitting there in the press conference after the game, and I still quite like the way he speaks. It feels like he's actually got the charisma or the personality for the United job in terms of he can weather the pressure, but because he keeps making the decisions without buckling. But it's now about those decisions that he keeps making.
Yeah, the Sunday Telegraph is reporting Amorim staring down barrel. And in Sam Wallace's piece, he says Amorim keeps sending out teams who fail to win games, and the consequences become ever harder to ignore. Over 2 seasons, and you mentioned this record, he's overseen 33 Premier League games from which United have taken 34 points. In other words, relegation form. The man himself seems defeated by it all, and there were no excuses afterwards. Martin, I'm sure you saw the game. Is it as bad as you've seen in recent weeks from United?
Following on from Miguel's point there, really, he'd make a brilliant spokesman for Manchester United. He's exactly the bloke you'd like to hear from to explain what's just happened. He just doesn't seem to know what's just happened, if you know what I mean, when it's happening. Look, the one thing I hope, we was talking earlier, the one thing I hope is that they don't panic and take Crystal Palace's manager or Bournemouth's manager or whatever, because I really like what's happening in Crystal Palace, really like what's happening at Bournemouth, and I don't think those guys deserve to be put in to try to rescue Manchester United. The problem here is, the longer they're together, it doesn't get any better. You'd think it would get better. You'd think, I'd never like it when a man talks about idea, singular, and Amorim always talks about my idea, executing my idea. You think, surely there's got to be a plural in there somewhere. But even if they need to learn his idea, the longer they go on, they don't seem to be understanding it any more than they did at the start. And if you look at that Brentford game as well, the shape never changes, but the personnel, where they are in that shape, keeps changing, and it's almost this sort of manic. You look at the back three. You look how often that changed in the Brentford game, where different people are playing, and you think, well, no wonder nobody looks as if they really feel confident in their position, because 5 minutes goes by and they say, oh yeah, you're playing on the left now, you're playing on the right.
He does seem to change one of his central defenders in every single game, doesn't he? Dom, in the Mail on Sunday, it does sum it up, really. Mediocre, mid-table and miserable. And just picking up on what Martin said there, this is my idea. But they say Amorim's inflexibility is damaging United. Is there a case for the defence? I'm talking about Amorim here. And is it simply the formation, or is it more deep-rooted than that?
I think it's more deep-rooted, and there's one quote from this season, this short season, that has stood out like a lighthouse, and it was when he said at Grimsby that the players have spoken. That to me says it's far more deep-rooted than just the manager. There's an issue in the dressing room. Are they playing for him? Are they believing in him? And you mentioned before about as he come to make a decision. Why is the scrutiny not on Omar Barada and Jason Wilcox and the people who actually made the first, who've gone and appointed Amorim? They're as culpable in this as everything. It's all very well Amorim having the focus, but there's everything around Manchester United that seems to be wrong.
But on that as well, and we'll actually come to this later with West Ham, because I think there's a similar issue there. When you speak to people who run football clubs, sporting directors, they would talk about what you have to do when you're starting from scratch at a club is basically the first thing you do in a modern game is decide what sort of club you want to be and what the football is going to be, basically. You know, pick an ideology that's at least ideally anchored to the club's history to create buy-in, and then fit all recruitment, including the manager and the players, into that. Whereas with this, it's like they went straight for a very specific type of manager who plays a very specific interpretation of football. And it's kind of like the same issues you would have seen like a decade ago again.
Yeah, but he was never keen, though. It was never his wish to come in the middle of last
Halfway
season.
through the season.
He wanted to come in at the end of the season, implement things through the summer, so he's got a blank page to work with, get things across. But he walked into basically a vortex in the middle of last season, and the result, he's never, ever, ever been able to recover from that start.
Liverpool looked at him, didn't they? And they didn't like this idea that there's this one way of playing, and whatever the personnel you have got on the staff at the time, they have then got to be pushed sort of like a sausage into a skin into this system. I don't know. I've always I like the guys like Carlo Ancelotti who come into a club and right, what have we got, and then we'll play that way. We'll play the way that suits these players, and then you can begin to implement your ideas. But this hasn't worked almost from the very start, really.
Miguel, we talk about it being a position where United could have made a decision any time in the past few months. In the Sunday Times, going back to that, it's almost saying, look, it's become irredeemable now for Ruben Amorim. After that Grimsby game, and it's all well and good if a team is winning and certain things aren't focused and picked up upon, but his body language was picked up upon there. Now, you were there yesterday, and again, we saw that. I don't want to watch while Bruno Fernandes takes this penalty. He's not helping himself with those actions, is he?
No, look, and these things, they should be small things that people like that become details, but they're all, whether they're small or big, is always basically dependent on results. Because, I mean, you can basically say and do anything when you're winning. But when you're losing, everything gets amplified, and it has, like, if United were winning games, not looking at penalties would become part of his, part of his personality, the charm, the charisma. But it's about then, like, that changes depending on what's happening on the pitch. And yet, the look isn't good. It starts to create even more pressure around it all. And this is the thing. It's like United are just caught in this cycle. They can't get away with this noise and this atmosphere they can't get away from. But within that, I mean, for all the kind of, even the way I'm talking now, the kind of instinct of United is to talk about what the club is now. There are like very basic football problems here. I think that, like, even someone like me, not a coach or anything, that you can immediately identify. And one was yesterday. I couldn't help notice it. And like, actually, Amorim after the game spoke about how we couldn't get control and we played the game Brentford wanted us to play. And he mentioned the words control 7 times. I counted them in the transcript. And like, what does control come from, basically? Central midfield. And a lot has been made in the summer about how he wanted a central midfielder. Instead, they went and spent close to over 100 million on another 2 number 10s and a forward, which has left them, with at least 6 players who can play in the number 10 position and very few midfielders. I know people go on about Kobbie Mainoo, although I don't think he's exactly that type of midfielder. But who definitely isn't that type of midfielder is Bruno Fernandes. He's just been because I noticed any time they were looking for
neutralised their best player.
Yeah, and Fernandes then in that position where they need control, he kept trying to play kind of like game-breaking balls, and immediately and even Andrews spoke about it after the game how again, like, the focus would be on the kind of the long balls, bombardment, but we used our midfield to neutralise them in midfield.
Yeah. But if he's a coach, and this is what he's a coach, he's a great coach. That's what that's how it was sold. He's a great coach. Well, then coach Kobbie Mainoo.
Yeah.
If Kobbie Mainoo isn't doing what you need him to do, he's been there almost a year now. You've had a year to work with this kid, and he looks a good kid. He looks a good player. And you think, you've had a year together now. Surely you should be able to start moulding him to what you want, really. There should be signs. Instead, not in the team again yesterday. Comes on in the second half.
Just on the game itself, because we can overload with stats, can't we? We've spoken about the points return, but, I mean, I couldn't believe it. I had to keep checking over and over again. Back-to-back Premier League wins have eluded Ruben Amorim since he's taken over. Within this game, though, there was a big moment, wasn't there? Bruno Fernandes, we just mentioned him there. It was a penalty that was saved. but the build-up to the penalty and the VAR check, they confirmed the penalty, but no red card. Is there a little bit of sympathy towards United and Ruben Amorim that maybe that wasn't a red card when it was reviewed?
Yeah, I am. This is I think episode 463 of I don't understand football anymore about decisions that get made. It's a clear red card to me. If he's the last man, he's pulled him back. He's not in control of the ball because he's not in control of himself. But it's situations like you would have backed Bruno Fernandes to score. He's the captain. That's what he does. That's what you need your captain in those moments to step up and score. Do you know what? I'm thinking back now to a moment with Liverpool when Roy Hodgson, when it was going wrong for him, and Steven Gerrard missed the. Steven Gerrard, usually so dependable from the penalty spot, misses at Blackburn, and you knew that the time was up. It just has this sort of inevitability around it all, really, in terms of when your captain misses a pressure penalty to make it 2-2. It's just a bad situation.
Martin, lots of ifs and buts, and one thing you did refer to that you just hope that they don't ruin Bournemouth's season and Palace's season. But if it isn't to be Ruben Amorim, and if he isn't the answer moving forward, then who?
Well, those two guys for starters. You know, I mean, that's exactly where you would go, isn't it? That's exactly where you would go. But I just hope it doesn't happen, because I love the way the top five, I think it is at the moment. I love the way the top five looks. I think it's got Bournemouth in it, it's got Crystal Palace in it, it's got Sunderland in it, which is delightful. As someone who thought that the top six would be the big six this season, I really did. I looked at it and thought, right, this is what will happen. You know, if we could pause the season now, I'd be a very, very happy man. It's got to be something like that. It's got to, but United have got this way of sort of, they're sucking the life out of everybody at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, they've sucked the life out of Amron. The guy looks like a nervous wreck. He's looking down, and I mean, I don't know if he didn't watch penalties at Sporting, but you know, he looks like he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders. You see players once they've left Manchester United, and you think, oh, he looks a player again. You know, you saw Anthony against Nottingham Forest in your week. You're thinking, oh, he actually looks he looks a player again now. Whereas at Manchester United, it was everything about it. He's depressing, basically.
And on that, if they appointed Iraola, which I suppose a lot of people would say is up there at Glasner as one of the potential options.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, are we not back around to the same problem where Iraola would require, I think he is more adaptable, obviously, but he would still require a certain amount of players to play his highly aggressive style. And then if that can't fit in straight away, then are we just into the same cycle again, where United need to spend another 100 million on players or more just to get specific players they need? Suddenly a manager has to adapt to that. And which again comes back to this same issue. You decide on what sort of club you want to be, rather than kind of continually responding. It's like they're always chasing themselves and chasing it, which exactly, you know, fits with your point about how they pointed a mid-season. Yeah.
It's the worst run club in football. I mean, because every advantage that has happened in the rules of football, financial, everything, and the way the money is divided up, the way the Champions League money, the UEFA money, everything is going for Manchester United. Absolutely everything. It is beyond belief that they're not in Europe. How can you be Manchester United and not get into Europe with all the advantages that they've got? It's not just not getting into the Champions League, they're not in Europe. It's mind-blowing. It's like Bayern Munich not getting into Europe. It's mind-blowing.
So there's much positive about them because they're results. This is the results business that we're in, guys. It's as simple as that. It's all about the results.
Manchester United under Ruben Amorim, it has not been good.
It's not good.
Well documented, right? Well documented. 14 losses in 27 Premier League matches, and they failed to win consecutive Premier League matches since he has arrived at the club. It's not what we expect at all for the Red Devils. To break down what has been a crazy day in the Premier League, we bring in our Premier League correspondent, Jeff Streves. Jeff, exhale. What a day it was today in the Premier League. Just the results are absolutely insane.
Stefan, I'm just looking at those stats for Manchester United and Ruben Amorim. They are absolutely horrible, aren't they? They make for such poor reading if you're a Manchester United fan. I mean, 34 points from 33 games. That, my friends, is relegation form. It is not happening. And I don't know where they go from here. And do you know what, for me, the biggest surprise about today was? It wasn't a surprise. This is Manchester United. This is what they are now. There was Ruben Amorim said this week, all the talk around the training ground was the positivity about potentially getting back-to-back Premier League wins for the first time. Back-to-back wins? I mean, how low is the bar set? That's absolutely appalling for a club of Manchester United's stature. And, I mean, again, not surprised, Brentford. Out of the last 4 games there, they've beaten Manchester United 3 times out of the last 4. They've got their number. They did a number on them as well. And after the game, Amorim said, they never settled. They fell into Brentford's way of playing. They never had control. There doesn't look to be any sort of pattern. On the opening day of the season against Arsenal, I thought, okay, there are some signs of cohesion there. It looks like that they've had the pre-season he's always wished he'd had. He's got the players he wanted. It looked like at last there was some sort of plan. But dear, oh dear, it's just, I don't know. I think Manchester United supporters are looking at each other now. I mean, their love for their club will never ever die. That will never ever change. But they're just exasperated. They want to support the players. They want to support the manager. But look at these numbers. They are just absolutely damning. And it's impossible to look at what's going on and say, OK, well, where and how is this going to improve? Let me ask you two. Where and how do you see this improving under Ruben Amorim, based on what you've seen so far?
I don't see it improving under Ruben Amorim, and that leads me to my question. How much longer does this experiment, this failure continue before they cut the cord, before they send him to that beautiful farm in the country?
Well, Aaron, I just, how much patience have they got? It will be embarrassing for Sir Jim Ratcliffe and the football group, if you like, they took control of football matters. It's that they went out on a limb, they paid a lot of money, they got rid of Dan Ashworth. There's been so many errors in their handling since they've come into the club. At what point do they admit they have made a terrible mistake? And this is just not working. He's not having an impact. And if he is having an impact, it's a negative one. You can't argue. Again, look at those numbers. And look at the play today as well. The manner of the goals that they conceded. So poor by their standards. And I go back to what I was saying. The fact that they were talking midweek, this could be the time. This could be the time where we get back-to-back wins for the first time. It's just Manchester United we're talking about. And they can't even do that.
That guy's never cutting his hair.
He's never going to be able to cut his hair.
He's going to have to be careful what sort of shoes he wears at this rate, because he's going to be standing on his own hair, isn't he?
You're absolutely right. And it is interesting because it really does seem like nothing seems to go right for the Manchester United side. And the goalkeeping situation is a clear example of that one more time. We've been talking about Andre Onana and how poor he was. He finally leaves the club. They bring in Bayindir and all of their hopes go into this keeper. And now today he gives up definitely one that was on him, maybe 2 that could have been on him. But it's difficult, and it really does feel like it's almost a cursed situation. Whatever decision or whatever tactic they attempt, it almost seems like it does not work out.
Well, Stefan, I don't think anything is working out. The only positive you could take from today is that Šeško scored his first goal for Manchester United. That's it. That's the only positive I can think of. His substitutions baffle many people. I mean, changing a centre-back like for like when you're chasing the game, I don't get that. And Bruno Fernandes' position, this deep position he plays him in, is he really affecting the game from back there? He looked pretty ineffective to me today. So there's more and more questions, and that's the problem. It's more and more of the same. You get glimpses, like the win over Chelsea last week. You think, OK, here we go. But those bursts, those moments of positivity, they're getting fewer and fewer and farther apart. I understand what Amorim's saying. He said in the press conference afterwards, yes, whenever we win, you never talk about the system, and whenever we lose, you talk about the system, which is fair comment from him. But it doesn't matter, Football is all about results. It's as simple as that. And managers are judged on results. And his results are absolutely just not up to the standard of a club of Manchester United's stature. Simple as that. So I wouldn't have thought this situation can continue for long. As to when they decide to make a change, if this continues, well, if this continues, it's a case of when, not if, because they cannot allow this to continue.
Now, Jeff, the Manchester United hierarchy will have to have been tempted to make a drive from West London down to the south to maybe tempt Oliver Glasner into popping over after seeing that display against Liverpool. Is there anything that can surprise you about Glasner in this Crystal Palace now?
Yeah, I mean, also, Aaron, you've got to talk about the way he has conducted himself. He's lost a lot of his best players. He nearly lost his captain, Mark Gay, and all he said was very diplomatically, "Gay's like me now. His future is up in the air. Let's see what happens." Clearly wasn't happy with the players that were sold and the replacements that were coming in, but he handled the situation with great dignity. And look at the tune he's getting out of his players. It would be so easy, to be sulky and your first bad result, throw your arms in the air and say, well, sold all our best players, what do you expect? Not a bit of it. But, he's an absolute credit to his profession. Got on with the job and he's got results. You talk about their unbeaten run at the moment as well. And watching the highlights of this game, they absolutely deserved it. Alisson kept Liverpool in this game for large stretches of it. Adam Wharton, a player who allegedly Liverpool have coveted, dear oh dear, he absolutely ran the show. I mean, you don't see it that often in the modern game. A central midfield player getting hold of the game by the scruff of the neck and running the game. He ran the game. He absolutely ran the game. His influence, his touches were superb. Mateta was excellent as well. But it's just the way Palace went about their business. They were absolutely excellent. Liverpool, they were never really at it. You look at Sarr's goal. He's completely alone. There's nobody anywhere near him. Nobody anywhere. Now they get themselves back in the game. And then afterwards, Slot said, one player decided to go for a counter-offence. It should have been about defending her. But now, he didn't name the player. He kept talking about this one player who decided that it would be a moment for offence, and that was incorrect. But, I mean, Eddie Nketiah was a very, very popular player at Arsenal. Trust me, he's even more popular at Arsenal right now. He was getting plenty of WhatsApps from his mates from the Emirates. No question about that.
So on the other end of the pitch, obviously, it does make sense that it is Crystal Palace that kind of ends this run of good fortune for Liverpool, despite not playing their best, still getting those wins, those late goals that we've been talking about now for several weeks. It was almost like this was going to come at some point where the defensive errors were going to punish them. It happens at Selhurst Park. Is there more to go into this for Liverpool? Is there a little bit of panic as far as there are some deeper-seated issues that maybe have been kind of glossed over because they're still able to get results in those matches earlier in the season?
Yes, it's a very fair point, Stefano, in that have they been papering over the cracks? And basically what happened to them today is what they've been doing to other teams. Turning it around and late winners. I mean, this man kept them in the game. I think when you look at the games this season, I mean, you can't be critical of Liverpool because of their results. In a strange way, you go back to Manchester United, you can't say there's much positive about them because of their results. This is the results business that we're in, guys. It's as simple as that. It's all about the results. Liverpool have been getting results, so there's certainly no need to panic. I think if you asked every other team in the Premier League, would you like to swap places with Liverpool right now? They'd say, yes, please. We'll take that. Now the questions will come as to whether or not, maybe the way that Palace took the game to Liverpool, that's something for other teams to look at, to have that bravery, to not be cowed by the aura of the champions, not to be afraid of having a go at them because you might get something from them. Let's see where they go from here. It's a million miles from a collapse or a need to panic. Of course it isn't. Arne Slot's a very good trainer. He may well say, right, OK, we've been getting away with this. We get to the training ground, we work hard, and we iron out these problems, and we stop giving up chances. Other teams haven't taken these chances. Let's stop this right now. and he could turn it around. Or they could persist and other teams might start to take those chances. Equally, I know Manchester City won today, obviously, and won well in the end. But if Arsenal don't take this chance tomorrow, if they don't beat Newcastle United, and that's a tricky game away from home, then that is not such a bad loss for Liverpool at all. Again, I know I'm like a broken clock, but it's results. If Arsenal don't take advantage, for Arsenal, means nothing.
All right. Fair point. Jeff Treves breaking it all down for us on an absolutely crazy Saturday in the Premier League. Cheers, Jeff.
Cheers, Jeff.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah, you guys were both at the heart of what could have been a game-changing moment. How relieved were you, Nathan, when Cuevan saved that penalty?
Yeah, fairly. I had trusted him, though. I've seen him do it before, so when he goes into a penalty shootout, I'm more convinced he's going to save it than they score.
Were you relieved to stay on the pitch as well?
No, I knew. Tactical.
You've saved, Cuevan, 3 of your 5 penalties that you faced in your time at Liverpool. So how important was it for you to save that penalty at that moment in the game, considering how many points Brentford have dropped this season when you've been in front?
Yeah, I think it was obviously important. Come at an important time of the game when we're 2-1 up. So, yeah, it was a big save, and then obviously we did well to finish it off as well and get the win.
As you say, you know Cuevan well, international teammates. How good is it to have him here at Brentford with you?
Unbelievable. Since he's come in, he's been so part of the group, so fluid. We've needed him, you know, and he's brought that security that we need behind us, and he's been top class.
How have you settled in here?
Yeah, it's been brilliant, yeah. Obviously, Nathan's helped me a lot to settle in, and the lads here have been really welcoming, and yeah, it's a really good club, and yeah, we just need more days like this time.
You can hear the crowd in here. Beating Manchester United at home must always be a good feeling. How much belief does this give you going into the next game? Manchester City back here next week. You can get another good result like this.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think we're at our best yet either. I think today we had spells where we weren't good enough and we applied pressure to ourselves, so there's a lot more to come from us. This is the bottom standard that we work from that.
Well done today, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, George. Nathan Collins actually saying he knew he wasn't going to be sent off for that pull on Mbeumo. He said it was tactical. That was such a big moment in the game, though, that penalty save.
Yeah, it was a huge moment. I think probably the amount of time that Bruno Fernandes had to wait really kind of played into Brentford's hands. But I disagree. I mean, I thought it was a red card. I think it's denying a goal-scoring opportunity. It's a penalty, and we're probably lucky to get away with that. But listen, overall, it's Brentford's day. They thoroughly deserved the win.
Yeah, absolutely. Took the lead in this game and got all 3 points. That's been quite rare for them this season. It's a big win here, and the fans really partying in the stands here as well as the music gets louder. We'll have a look, of course, at that penalty incident as well, and the save from Kelleher a bit later.
These are heady days for Crystal Palace. Not just this amazing run, but they sit second in the Premier League ahead of the games to come this evening and, of course, Super Sunday tomorrow. I mean, they were well worth that win as well. We knew it was going to be a massive test for Liverpool, and it's a test that Liverpool, at times, couldn't live with.
They couldn't, and credit to Crystal Palace. We spoke about them early on in the show, and the togetherness and resilience that they show together. And I think it just shows second in the Premier League, 3 points behind Liverpool. And you can go all the way back to last season and what they achieved, winning an FA Cup. Start of this season, winning the Community Shield against Liverpool, and it just brings massive belief. And they're in European football, having to deal with that midweek, Saturdays, midweek again, because they haven't got the biggest of squads. But I tell you what, they've got some real talent in that team, and players, obviously, Sarr coming back in and getting his goal. Pino, 2 in middle of the park. Adam Wharton, wow, this boy is special. Got
he's
brought off.
Something else, isn't he?
Yeah, he's still getting back to fitness, but he just plays with a calmness and experienced head, plays forward whenever he can. Kamada next to him, unbelievable as well. I just can't compliment this Crystal Palace team enough from back to front. Mateta holding the ball up, physicality, creating chances. Unfortunately for him, he didn't get a goal today, but he brought numerous saves out of Alisson. And if it wasn't for Alisson in the first half, they could have been out of sight. I mean, the first goal came from really poor defending from Liverpool, in swinging corner. Gravenberch gets it all wrong. He's at the back post, should clear it away, heads it back towards, and Sarr scores the goal. But they had opportunities. And this was Premier League at its best. As a pundit sat here watching football on a Saturday afternoon, it doesn't get much better. Honestly, it was a great game of football. 2 top teams, And Liverpool chucked the kitchen sink out at the end, and just when they got back to 1-1, I thought, here we go, it's going to be one winner. But Palace kept going, 90 plus 7 minutes, they get the goal. And that's where Arne Slot was going mad, and those Liverpool players, because there was 6 minutes of time added on, scored 97.
He can't complain about that. There's so many late goals so far this season, but that atmosphere at the end, and we know how rocking that stadium can be. But you don't often see scenes like that, where minutes after a Premier League game in September is finished, it's like a cup final.
Well,
you can understand why. That's
I mean, Palace were unbeaten for a long, long time, and they wanted to keep this going. This was against a Liverpool team who'd won 5 out of 5, and people are saying, they're not quite at the level we would expect, and I would agree with that. I mean, his team selection, Arne Slot, would be questionable in my opinion. No Gakpo on the left. In the first half, it was so narrow. Florian Wirtz, unfortunately, at this moment in time, hasn't got to the level that we expected. And certainly, me and I'm a big,
there's some
big
growing
fan of
question marks over him. It's still early. He's still adjusting to the Premier League. But are the question marks growing for you?
I mean, look, we're 6 games into the Premier League. He cost an awful lot of money. He's still very, very young, and we know how demanding the Premier League can be. But it was just a fact when I saw the team sheet and there was no Gakpo, they were so tight, it was so compact, and it was pretty easy for Crystal Palace to get down that right-hand side under Muniz, and he had an opportunity. Alisson again. Crystal Palace, second in the Premier League. Well done, you guys.
And how would you assess overall Isak's afternoon? Gets his first Premier League start. Overall disappointing?
Yes, he probably played more minutes than we would have expected. Rio Ungamoa came on with 10 minutes plus time added on, if that. So they got 80 plus minutes from Isak. He would never, ever have played that. He had a header opportunity that he probably should do better with. He looked a little bit frustrated. We saw a little bit of glance where McAllister played a top-class ball in and he gets it stuck under his feet and pushes past the post. Fine margins. He's still got to find connections with his teammates, but I'm taking nothing away from this Crystal Palace team. They were absolutely sensational today.
Galatasaray away in the Champions League next week. It's Chelsea away, then Manchester United at home in the Premier League. Listen, it's their first defeat of the season. They had a wonderful start. A lot of people felt that at some point those late goals and being less than convincing that the luck would run out at some point. Nothing to worry about at the moment. But in terms of things he needs to fix, in terms of getting all these amazing parts functioning at their very best, what's his biggest area of concern right now?
Well, defensively, you look at the opportunity that he's giving up, and you see the scoreline today, 2-1. It could have been more to Crystal Palace. It could. Obviously, two set pieces. Obviously, the second one was the second phase from Eddie Nketiah late on, but the first one will be really disappointing. I mean, that's just an individual error. He's just got the head wrong, and it's gone back into the 6-yard box. That can happen, but when it keeps happening, people keep questioning why. It's not like they're not working, but what it brings enormous amount of pressure. So every set piece, it's like, oh my word, anxiety goes through, you switch off for a second, then it's another goal. And we've seen it too many times this season with Liverpool. We've always talked about how good they are going forward. Today I didn't really see that. I don't think they were great. And I think he was very honest there. Crystal Palace were the better of the two teams and they got the just rewards.
Slot on Hugo Ekitike. Nat Stillion, I know you have been desperate to chat about this.
I'm not.
I mean, go on then. So talk me through it. What did you make of, 1, the celebration, and then 2, the sending off, and obviously the comments there from the manager?
I mean, Arne Slot just said he apologised. You should never apologise for scoring a goal. Listen, Ekitike, he's been incredible. I mean, I've been really impressed. And I'm talking from my point of view. I grew up in a small country and I always wanted to play in the Premier League. That was my dream. That's what I worked out. I got up in the morning and I wanted to play in the Premier League. I wanted to be part of those exciting moments, you know, scoring good goals in front of the full stadiums. Those players come to this league, you know, they're working every day and they score a goal and you get punished for that. I don't agree with it. I don't agree. If I'm Ekitike, I will send a letter to FA and ask the referee to pay my fine. Honestly, I will do that.
It's the rules, though.
I mean, well, let's get it right.
Please.
I know the rules is a rule, but
yeah,
this is the excitement of football. This is what we as the players. That's what we work for. This is what we do. The enthusiasm, the adrenaline, scoring a goal, making the fans happy. Has any of the players been asked about that rule? What they feel like?
Okay, my question to you would then be, you've captained sides, right? So you're the captain, right? You're playing there, you're in the cup game, there's 5 minutes still to go. Your striker has scored the goal. Yes, you've gone 2-1 up, but now you've got to play the last, 10 minutes or so of the game out with 10 men. Are you happy with him? Are you not wanting an apology off him?
No, I don't need an apology. What do you mean apology?
Well, I mean,
that could have cost his team.
Yeah.
That could have cost the team, though. He didn't in the end, but...
It happened before, but what I want to say is, like, why the players have not been asked how they feel about it. I mean, sometimes as a human being, as a referee, you have to understand that the players want to celebrate. They want to celebrate with the fans.
But you can still celebrate, just don't take the shot off if you're on yellow already.
Put it that way. If that rule is banned tomorrow, nobody will care.
Yeah,
nobody will bother about it.
I think
nobody will even pay attention to it.
I think from the position that you're saying about it being the rule, it's still to me it always seems a bit silly. Like why is that such a rule? We all, as I think football fan, I think not even necessarily as a player, I think as a fan, like I've taken my top off in the pub before when someone scored. Do you know what I mean? It can just happen. But I think he knows the rules in this scenario. You think you've got to be smarter than that?
You think in that moment he even remembered that you've got a yellow?
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
You don't.
Yeah, clearly
you
not.
Don't.
No, clearly
That's
not.
the way football is 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
The excitement is there. It's about, scoring and winning the game, celebrating. And you not even thought about that yellow card, and you won't even consider the consequences after. But apologising, do me a favour.
No. Well, look. Come on. Well, look. There's one player that I think might feel the pressure a little bit on the fact that Hugo Ekitike is out of the squad. Alexander Isak, right? He's coming back from fitness, and I think that's the main issue here is that fitness pressure almost on Alexander Isak. He only played X amount of minutes in the game in midweek. Well, he got to the half time and then he got taken off. And I think as soon as he got taken off as well, obviously he got his goal here that we can see. As soon as he got taken off, though, he was sent straight out, didn't even go down the tunnel to go and do shuttle runs. Yeah. I mean, do you think, here he is taking on those shuttle runs, do you think, Julian, that the pressure on him now is going to be quite high?
A little bit, maybe more physically because of match fitness than anything else, because we think that he would have started on the bench for the game against Crystal Palace on Saturday, that Ekitike would have started, now Ekitike is suspended. And that Isak would have started the game in the Champions League next week, which now he would have to play on Saturday and then potentially, it's up to Arne Slot, on Tuesday as well in the Champions League, which is what they're trying to avoid, for him to start back-to-back games with just 3 days apart or 4 days apart, because physically he's still probably not ready, considering he hadn't started a game since May, obviously, at the end of last season. Didn't have a proper pre-season because of what happened with Newcastle. So they just wanted to be cautious with him, and rightly so. So that changes a little bit, but it's just a one-match ban. You can still go back to the rhythm that you wanted. And inevitably, at some point, very soon now, Isak will be ready to start every game and play 90 minutes in a lot of those games. So for now, it's just disturbed a little bit. I think the planning that they had for them to rotate and alternate, that changes a little bit,
Yeah. And Stillian, look, we're at the start of the league still, but there's this really ominous feeling about if Liverpool go and beat Crystal Palace this weekend, is that how it's going to go for the rest of the season? Is this quite a defining weekend, do you reckon?
Not at all. You don't win the league in the first 5 games of the season.
Hey, look, I'm an Arsenal fan. I like you saying that. I like you saying that. Yeah.
It's still a long way to go. And, just touching on Isak, I think Arne Slot is well aware that you don't win the league that early in the season. But he will need Isak in the long term. He's making sure his body is prepared for a long season. He would like him to play 2 to 3 games a week sometime. He wants him to be available. But to do that, you have to go through a certain process. You have to make sure your muscles, your body is ready to compete in the highest level for longer periods of time. And it's a well-structured plan. I think he's doing really well. Isak, I'm really excited to see what he's going to do this season, because I think he can make a big difference for Liverpool.
Been terrific, excellent in 2025. Only Liverpool, Arsenal and Manchester City have picked up more points than them in the calendar year so far, even above the likes of Chelsea and Newcastle, who both qualified for the Champions League this season, of course. Now, Things looking good for Palace and Glasner then, but we shouldn't forget what happened last season. First, though, the good stuff. We've got the longest unbeaten run since the start of last season here. Obviously, the reigning champions, Liverpool, went on a 26-game unbeaten run. Then come Arsenal, and then come Bournemouth and Crystal Palace, whose current run of 11 games and counting across the end of last season and into this current season is, at the moment, ongoing. But rewind 12 months, it was a different story because Palace have also been a side to go on bad runs of results as well. Here's the longest games without a win since the start of last season. Now, excluding the teams that eventually got relegated last season, only Wolves went on a longer run without a win, and they actually did it twice with 10 and 9 games. Palace lost 5 of their opening 8 Premier League games last season on a run of 8 without a win. This time last year, even questions were being raised about the future of Oliver Glasner. And since the start of last season, Palace have drawn 17 games, more than any other side. So the question is, if Palace are to make a further leap in their development, or even Glasner, if he's to make a further leap towards a so-called bigger side, does Glasner need to be more ambitious? Does he need to turn all of these draws, or at least some of these draws, into victories?
And we're saying that about a team that are, all right, early days, but 5th in the Premier League table. And if they can, as Dave points out there, start turning some of those draws into wins. I mean, you're talking then about them being a challenger for top 4. I mean, what is the ceiling for Crystal Palace, do you think, Jeff?
You know, it's hard to not get carried away a little bit. They've had a good start and you know, the big teams, you know, over the course of the season do come good and they pick up more points and that's just the way it is. But for Palace to keep ticking along, like I said, they have that core group together. They're probably running on, you know, good momentum from winning silverware. So for them, they're probably just looking forward to, you know, seeing where they can, you know, go with this, where they can sort of lead it. They know already they're going to be comfortable. They're a top table club. The players are fully Premier League established. So, you know, it's exciting for them and the fans, you know, to see where they can finish up.
Exciting, and yet there must be that frustration as well. If you're, you know, we all know where our football clubs are in the food chain of the Premier League, whatever division your team is in. So, you know, they win an FA Cup, they want to kick on, their form is good, but then there's talk about their manager going, and they've seen Eze leave, and you know what's going to happen with Mateta, what's going to happen with Gay. That's got to be frustrating, Charlie.
I think it is frustrating, you know, but that's what comes with success, you know. And like Jeff said, I think the going on that cup run, winning that cup, gives the squad confidence and belief, and that's why they're on such a good run now. They say 11 games unbeaten. That belief and togetherness probably is what's winning them games or not losing games, you know, and it's how long that can continue for Crystal Palace.
And of course, a lot will depend on Mark Gahey and how long he stays at the club. Charlie, you know, I think the club have accepted that he will be leaving sometime soon and that his time is coming to an end with them. Could leave in January, halfway through the season, but they would at least then be financially compensated for what's left of his contract. Is that therefore the best or worst outcome for him to go in January, Charlie?
A bit of both. I think if you're Mark and you want to better yourself or go to a higher club or bigger club, as you want to say, then the club has to look for financial recompense, you know. So it's probably best that he does go in January for the club. Off the pitch, on the pitch, you probably want him for the whole season, and then give him your good wishes and say bye and good luck. But it's what the club wants and what the club needs.
What do you think, Jeff? What's best for Palace? An extra 5 months of Gahey in the team, and what that could get you, or the financial?
It's a bit of a tricky one, I think, just because you look at the way it unfolded through the summer, and then the talk of the manager saying if you get rid of him, I'll walk as well. So, you know, he might do the same in January, where he's saying no, we need him for the full season, but then on the other hand, the club are probably thinking we want some money for him, and then obviously Mark Gahey has his own ideas where he's probably thinking, you know, when it comes to the summer, I'll have better options. You know, who's going to be buying him in January? Will he have all the options on the table? So it probably is better for him to just keep playing, going into a World Cup, you know, getting on the plane and doing really well in the tournament for him would be amazing, and then he'll have options of all sorts of clubs, I'd imagine.
Well, yeah, and it seems he might have lots of options. I mean, obviously, Liverpool pushed for him in the summer. There's talk of Manchester City in the last few days. Real Madrid has been mentioned as well. I mean, if he has got these options on the table, what's he going through at the moment then?
Probably focusing on playing football. I think he probably thinking, like Jeff said, end of season, being in the best form that he can be, going into the World Cup, playing the best that he can, and then once that's finished, and then having all the options on the table wherever that may be, and it's choosing what's best for him.
Yeah. As and when he does go, whenever that might be, Jeff, how much of a hole is he going to leave in Palace's team? Not only defensively, but he's the captain as well.
Yeah, you'd like to think it'd leave a massive hole because he's been brilliant for the club. But then you look, they're fifth in the league. Who would have thought, Eze leaving would leave a big hole as well? And it doesn't seem to have right now. I know it's still early days, but Palace seem to be this club where they get players in from the Championship or other Premier League clubs, and they develop them, and then sort of sell them on, and they're not that big club where they hold on to players. So I'd imagine they'd be all right. They do smart business and they get good players in.
You think they'd be okay as and when he goes, Charlie? Or how hard is he to replace?
I think it will leave a big hole in terms of maybe off the pitch as well. I think he looks after a lot of players. He helps a lot of players off the pitch, and he has that connection with the fans. But like Jeff says, I think the business that Crystal Palace do has been good. Everyone thought that Eze would leave a massive hole as well, but they seem to have replaced him and are thriving. So I'm sure there's people in place that they're looking at, players in place that they're looking at. So it's picking the right person, I guess, for them, that when Mark does go, who they're going to bring in.
Just finally on Gay here and that whole leadership thing. We often hear, this player's great in the dressing room. He's brilliant to the players in the dressing room. I mean, I've never been in a dressing room. Most of the people watching won't know what that's like. Why is that so important, and what makes a great leader in that way for you, Jeff?
So it can be different. Obviously, there's vocal leaders, and on and off the pitch, they'll be the ones who go and talk to the manager and keep players in line. But then it could be someone who just gets on with everyone, is a friendly face. It could be upbeat. Could be good when they have a night out. Who knows? But,
there we go. Now we're getting
yeah. But no, there's loads of different ways you can be, a good leader, and you don't have to be the most vocal. I think he shows in his performances he's a leader the way he plays. But then, like I said, just being friendly around the place, picking people up. Sort of when they went through that, I think it was 8-9 games there where they didn't win. He could have been massive going in, saying it will turn. We're a good squad. And that sort of stuff, and then you look and see what they go on and win by the end of the season.
Reporter Jack Rosser. Welcome to you both. Before we chat, let's quickly run you through the back pages. And we'll start with The Sun. The back page splashes with Abira Eze. The headline reads, all to Eze / easy, of course. Star Abira leads Prem clean sweep. They also carry the news of Nottingham Forest's 2-2 draw with Real Betis in the Europa League. Anthony's late strike hits the post, and news from the Ryder Cup. These quotes coming from Justin Rose on Donald Trump, who's expected to be there on Friday. In the Telegraph, Rory McIlroy to silence us yobs at the Ryder Cup in New York as the build-up to that Ryder Cup continues. And Anthony again making this newspaper as well. Anthony makes his point. United reject scores late as Betis hold Forest. In the Times here, quotes from Wayne Rooney, where he said, "I'd be dead but for Colleen," discussing the support that his wife has given him with his struggles with alcohol over the years. They also cover Eze of the mark for Arsenal. More security at Ryder Cup, again with that visit from President Trump. And Draper wants prize pot hike. How about this in the Mirror Online? Jeremy Cross writes, Kobbie Mainoo ready to leave Man United in January. And that's despite new Ruben Amorim talks. Lots to discuss there going on, as always, at Manchester United. OK, let's start with the Carabao Cup and the back page of The Sun. And Jack, this was a victory for Arsenal, but they laboured to that victory. Is it fair to say? What did you make of the performance?
Yeah, all too easy in the end, I suppose, as the headline says there. But they did struggle at times, didn't they? It should have been far more comfortable. I suppose it's a benefit for Mikel Arteta that they didn't really have to get out of second gear to get past Port Vale. You obviously wouldn't expect that from them, but there was a number of big names in the side. A good night, really, in terms of Eze getting his first goal for the club. But it will just add to that sort of sense around Arsenal, really, that after the Manchester City game at the weekend, where there were accusations of Mikel Arteta being a bit too cautious, he was very bullish coming back against that yesterday. But I suppose that will now drag into the Newcastle game at the weekend. If they can't go out there and put on a real front foot attacking game and rack up the goals against Port Vale, then what will they manage to do against Newcastle? And really, Arteta can say whatever he wants about how attacking they are and how much he wants to go for it. They need to show this evidence. So really, it's a game that, in the grand scheme of things, this early in the tournament, doesn't matter too much either way. But he would have wanted it to be far more comfortable. But obviously, the important thing is that they do go through.
Yeah, Shaban, how frustrated will Arteta be with the fact that he had to bring on Declan Rice and Leandro Trossard in the final 10 minutes? Because I'm not convinced that was part of the plan, but he felt that they needed a bit more punch.
Well, it's all about the finishers, isn't it, Jess? That's what we've been hearing recently from Mikel Arteta. The guys come on, they do their job, and at the end of the day, they get the win. And I don't think many of us were massively surprised that Arsenal were going to beat Port Vale in this game, with absolutely no disrespect to Port Vale whatsoever. You know, they come away, they've got the job done. It'll be all eyes on the draw and looking ahead to the weekend now for Arsenal, because as that conversation keeps going round and round, there's a little bit of pressure on Mikel Arteta to provide silverware for the club and for the fans this season. And, you know, there were some good performances in there. Great to see Eze off the mark and get his goal. Arsenal fans will be happy about that. I'm sure Eze himself will take confidence from getting his first goal for Arsenal. But also Miles Lewis-Skelly, I mean, you talk about maybe a little bit of criticism that he's been getting from elements and portions of the fan base over the last little while. He had a good game tonight, and that back pass, that kind of back heel from him to Eze, just to put him on a plate and finish it, I thought showed a nice unit tonight. Yeah, you kind of, maybe fans were looking for them to blow them away, but at the end of the day, job done, on to the next. Yeah, you Arsenal fans will want to take the positives, won't they, Jack? The fact that, you know, Trossard was only on the pitch 5 minutes before he got his goal, neatly tucked away in the corner. A first goal for Eze early on in his career as well. A lot for Arsenal to be happy about with this match, though.
There is, you know, those are the key points as well, getting some, you know, good minutes into players like Miles Lewis-Skelly in terms of maybe kicking on. And I think as well, while it wasn't, you know, blowing them away and all singing, all dancing, I was at Chelsea last night and they were really under the pump against the League One team for quite a long time and looking really rather shaky. So you would much rather have it where it's a bit laboured, but almost it's still comfortable enough to get through and progress. And while Chelsea are still through, it showed a lot of sore points there and a lot of things that they need to work on. And Mikel Arteta certainly won't have been as upset as Enzo Maresca was with his players last night.
Yeah, Bukayo Saka got some minutes on the pitch. A bit of an injury scare for him, Shaban, but, you know, we'll see how that pans out. But good to see him back in as he continues his recovery.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Bukayo Saka, I mean, he's such a creative player, such a playmaker in the team, the amount of assists that he can gather for Arsenal along the way. And when Saka's not in the squad, they really, really miss him. I sometimes think he can be underappreciated for how much he provides for Arsenal. But that moment where he was stood on, it really connected with his ankle. I think a lot of Arsenal fans, you know, were watching kind of through their fingers or from behind the couch. But he played on for another 12, 14 minutes before then he made his way off the pitch. So fingers crossed, wrap wee Bukayo Saka up in cotton wool and fingers crossed he'll be all right.
Jack, I know that everyone keeps talking about this new strength in depth that Arsenal have, but they're going to need players like Saka throughout the season, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. I mean, you can have all the depth you want, but you need elite-level players, and Bukayo Saka is certainly that. There will be a group of players, Declan Rice among them, David Raya, Saliba, Gabriel, that Mikel Arteta will not want to lose. They've definitely improved in terms of that depth, and they've got some good quality in depth. Noni Madueke is a fine backup for Bukayo Saka, but if they'd maybe sold Saka in the summer, they probably wouldn't have been looking to Madueke to be that regular replacement, somebody that starts in and out at the highest level. Don't forget, I mean, they're playing Port Vale tonight, but they're targeting the later rounds of the Champions League, winning the Premier League title at the end of the season. And if they're to get there and beat the opposition, they will need to beat on a regular basis to reach those highs. They're going to need players like Bukayo Saka. We saw after he had a long time out last year, Odegaard was another one as well that had this similarly, that when those players came back, Arsenal's level shifted up by quite a percentage. So keeping Saka fit and firing all the way through is going to be really, really crucial if Arsenal are finally going to get over the line.
And they march on into the fourth round, as do Manchester City, who ran out 2-0 winners against Huddersfield. How good is it to see this renaissance of Phil Foden continuing, Shaban? A goal and an assist tonight.
Yeah, it's been quite topical, hasn't it, for the return of the Premier League season from the new season again tonight, finding the back of the net and just playing the way that we knew that Phil Foden could play football. And, you know, it happens, you know, we hear from all the pros, the former pros who have played in the game for many, many years. Sometimes you're playing, you're absolutely out your skin, and then something else could be happening and you're a wee bit off it. But he's certainly back to his best. We heard from Pep Guardiola last week talking about Phil Foden at the moment and his form and saying, you know, we're so glad to see Phil back like this. He's a huge addition to the team when he's playing like this. He's been playing out of his skin. Savinho, again tonight, finding the back of the net. But Phil Foden, he's the man of the moment. You know, just when you think maybe we've seen him at his peak, he just looks unstoppable once again for Manchester City. So a good win for them tonight. What was the stat, Jess? I heard you say it earlier on. They've won it 6 times in the last 12 years or something, Manchester City.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Yeah, always there for you. Huge part of that, Phil Foden. So, yeah, on to the next round for them.
Brilliant. Yeah, man of the moment. And England fans will be rubbing their hands with glee because a Phil Foden in form is great news for England with a World Cup on the horizon. Newcastle, big winners against Bradford, 4-1. 2 goals from Joelinton, 2 goals from Osula. They will play Spurs in the 4th round, Jack. What do you make of that matchup?
I'd imagine everyone at Tottenham is delighted that they're going to be having to drag themselves up to Tyneside in the middle of October in a midweek when they've got Champions League football to be dealing with as well. I'm sure there was a lot of delight in the changing room at Tottenham after that draw came through on the telly. That will be a great game. It's obviously the highlight of the draw that's just come out. It's a good matchup. It's 2 teams that seem like they're ready to go for it, you know, a bit more old school maybe in terms of the way they go at games, a bit more direct and up and down. So it should be an end-to-end game. A good result for Newcastle, of course. Joelinton getting a couple of goals is a massively popular figure. But I think Eddie Howe's been talking about Osula and maybe how he had a difficult end to the transfer window with everything that was going on at Newcastle and whether he might have been leaving the club and with Walter and Johan Wissa coming in as well. But with that depth there, they've lost Isak and you're never going to replace him. If they can have Osula confident as an option to either certainly compete with and also provide cover for Walter as he settles in, then it's a fantastic thing. So these are where these games are helpful for managers like Eddie Howe, and it will have been for Thomas Frank tonight as well. So an awkward trip for them, but they can learn a lot from these games as well.
Yeah, speaking of Thomas Frank, they beat Spurs and Thomas Frank beat Doncaster 3-0. Shaban, I'm wondering what you think of Thomas Frank's start at Spurs. Do we feel like this Spurs team have a different identity than under Postecoglou now? Are we starting to see that?
Yeah, I think we are starting to see that. I mean, he's such a good manager, Thomas Frank, and he's inherited a good side, a side that had also just won a trophy. So there's a confidence in this squad and in this team as well. But yeah, they're a different Spurs side to what we saw under Ange Postecoglou. And that is a great result for them tonight. Again, you would expect Spurs to beat Doncaster. But as Jack mentioned there earlier on, you know, you come into these ties and they can be very, very tricky for top sides. You know, the opposition can make it harder for them. But Doncaster tonight struggled against Spurs. It probably could have been more for them, but that is a good result. And I'm pretty sure Thomas Frank will be walking away happy with that.
I'm sure he will be. On to Wolves they march on to next, playing bottom of the league, Wolves in their next game. Jack, I'm interested in this because all the Premier League teams won again tonight. The majority won yesterday as well. It just goes to show then, isn't it, how difficult it is for lower leagues to get ahead in this competition?
Well, it is, especially with the seeding now after the changes to Europe. You know, we've got UEFA and the Champions League, the Europa League, the Conference League expanding further and further into the calendar, putting more strain on it. And that's obviously led the Football League and the FA and the powers that be to look at this competition and say, well, we'll seed it and bring them in later, as they have done for a long time, and then keep them apart as well. And the things we love about these cup competitions are the upsets. And it just seems that these smaller clubs are now having more and more of a task to really get these upsets going. If you're having to come up against the biggest side and almost give the biggest sides a pass through into the latter stages. You know, we mentioned already, Shaban referenced the stat about Manchester City winning 6 of the last 12. They do take it seriously when it comes to it. And we've seen a lot of strong teams named. Chelsea the same against Lincoln, even though they struggled. It was a strong side that Enzo Maresca named. I think the squad in total was worth over £500 million. So that's the task that is facing up to a lot of these clubs. As more money comes into the Premier League, these squads get deeper and deeper, and it is a really hard thing for the lower league clubs to compete. So I suppose if we do get a couple of those fairy tale stories, they'll be even more special, but it is a bit sad that it's being further stacked against them.
Yeah. Jack, Shaban, thank you for the moment. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning's newspapers, including this in the Mail. Look who it is. United reject Anthony ruins Forest's big Euro return. That's next.
Interestingly, talking about Liverpool centre-backs, we've got some news just into us. This is big news regarding Mark Gahey, because we are told that Crystal Palace realistically accept that Mark Gahey's time at the club is coming to an end. We're told the club acknowledge it will be difficult to convince their captain to commit to his long-term future at Palace. As for the player himself, by the way, he's calm about the next steps. Remember, on deadline day in the summer, he saw a move to Liverpool collapse on deadline day. They were close to getting him for £35 million. However, Gahey stayed at Crystal Palace. He could, of course, go for a fee in January or for free next summer, but we are told that Crystal Palace realistically accept that his time is coming to an end, which is essentially saying they don't expect him to sign a new contract at the club. Right, Charlie Austin is our guest this morning. First of all, and that big news just into us, is it any surprise that Gahey is not going to sign a new contract?
It's not a surprise. I don't think anybody in football see that as a surprise, because he got so close for it to happening and getting his move on deadline day. Nobody realistically thought he'd sign a new deal. That's the issue. And because of the injury that's happened to Leone, now they're thinking this is definitely going to happen. So they've come out and just kind of made a statement to be like, look, we don't expect the player to sign a new deal. But it's nothing that we didn't already know.
Yeah, and but I know the obvious thing to say is, well, Liverpool need a centre-back. We know Liverpool want him. We know he was keen on Liverpool, so surely he's going to go to Liverpool, whether it be January or next summer. But he's going to be highly sought after, and his price goes down and down until it gets to the end of that contract.
Yeah, to
the point where he could be free.
But I think Liverpool know that in the back of their minds, and the conversation would have happened, hence why they tried to get him in on the transfer deadline day, and probably should have done it before. Now it's going to attract a load of other clubs, to the attention of Mark Gahey. But Liverpool more than ever now show that they need a centre-half. Yes, they needed one in the summer and tried to get him, didn't come through, and they think, well, we tried January or even the summer gone. But now the injuries happen, is that force him to act even sooner?
Well, talking of the injury to Leone, now I know he hadn't been playing in the league. I know that. He's one for the future, but he was a fourth centre-back. They've still got Virgil van Dijk, Konate, and Ibrahima Konate and Joe Gomez. Now, that's 3 very good centre-backs. Now, if they're all fit, they probably don't have a problem. But they've got a lot of games, and they might not be fit. So have they got a problem right now? Because it's a long time till January.
A lot of games, competitions, Premier League, Champions League, League Cup, all that coming on. And we thought you've got 3 good defenders in there that can play. Now, let's be real. We have a world-class centre-half in Virgil van Dijk, who improves both of them, whoever's alongside. Then it's Konate and then Joe Gomez. Can Joe Gomez perform consistently if asked upon? I think the biggest question is obviously keeping them fit. But you need to keep Virgil van Dijk fit because he's world class, and if anything happens to him, that's even bigger issue than if something happens to Konate or Gomez.
Is your gut feeling that Liverpool will still win the title even if they have just got 3 fit centre backs? Because Leone, look, it's good.
But
we're expecting it to be a while.
Leone would have made 4, and to have 4 centre halves, and you're like, oh yeah, could maybe one more just in case. But you're comfortable there with the 4. They do need another centre half in, and the question is can they win it with 3? You don't say if they're injury free, then of course. But if something does happen to either of them, but especially Virgil van Dijk, then
will the players in the squad be concerned about this at all? Remember that, I mean, they clearly trust their manager. The fans trust their manager. Just the other day, we talked about how when they had a problem at right back, they put Szoboszlai there and they found a solution.
Yeah, but right back,
could they put Endo Ouattara at centre back? I mean, that's just off the top of my head.
But that's what I'm saying. That's where I'm going with right back. That's a situation where people say, a midfielder can play at right back, etc. We're talking about centre half. Very, very important position on the pitch. The spine of the team, really. So that's a hard one to put a makeshift centre half in there. And you can go all the way back. And I know people say, oh well, Xavi Mascherano played at centre half for Barcelona. We're talking that's the elite top end over in Spain.
Fernandinho, Man City did.
But I'm not sure that works.
Calvin Phillips leads. So central midfielders have.
Yeah, but I'm not. I don't think that works. I don't think that's in Arne Slot's mindset of. If worst case comes, then yeah, midfielder could go in, but I'm not sure that's in his mindset to do so.
Yeah, there is a poll in the moment on the Sky Sports News X account. Will Liverpool win the league with just the 3 centre-backs? At the moment, 61% are still saying yes. So in the main, you are not too concerned about this Leone injury at Liverpool.
News concerning Tottenham. The club's owners have unequivocally rejected an informal expression of interest from a consortium headed up by a tech entrepreneur. This tech entrepreneur is Brooklyn Eric, who's looking to take over the club. Now, the Lewis family, who own Tottenham Hotspur, have been adamant that the club is not for sale in recent weeks. And there's been a statement issued to the London Stock Exchange. They say the board of Tottenham Hotspur Limited is aware of recent media speculation and confirms that its majority shareholder, ENIC Sports and Developments Holdings Limited, has received and unequivocally rejected an informal expression of interest in relation to a proposal to acquire the entire issued and to be issued share capital of the club from a consortium led by Mr. Brooklyn Eric. They go on to say the board of the club and ENIC reconfirm that Tottenham Hotspur is not for sale, and ENIC is not looking to sell its stake in the club. So there is an interesting development from Tottenham Hotspur. Let's hear what the club's head coach, Thomas Frank, has had to say about all this in the last few minutes.
There's been more kind of takeover talk. The club's rejected a third approach in the last couple of weeks. Is it strange to come to a club that kind of is in this moment of change from one that was obviously so stable for so many years?
Yeah, there's a few more questions about it. So the short answer is yes, but you can say, to start was very stable. Daniel's been here for almost 25 years, so very, very easy, of course. Then the change came a little bit, okay, didn't expect that. But since then, the new old owners, or whatever we call it, the Lewis family, has been very transparent, very good in the way they communicate it. It's very clear. Club is not for sale. Vinay on top of everything. It's very clear. So for me personally, I feel a very stable environment going into work every day. And I also learned over a lot of years that's the only thing that helps me and helps the team is that I do everything I can to focus on the team and the players.
About 15 minutes after PSG forward Ousmane Dembele was announced as the winner at last night's ceremony, Liverpool posted this on X with the caption, "A season to savour for Salah." Right, good morning, Charlie Austin. Was Salah robbed?
I'm going to say no. Not robbed because I think Dembele was a standout candidate, I think. How he performed for PSG, they've gone to win the Champions League. He's a standout one. So for me, he wasn't robbed. However, that shouldn't take away for how brilliant Salah was last year. Like, he was phenomenal in the Premier League. Liverpool in the league, he was the top scorer. So 47 goal involvements. Like, he's been amazing. He was amazing. I just think that shows as much. Does the Premier League get almost overshadowed by the international kind of stage, really?
Yeah, well, I do want to get into that. I'll just show you some stats of how Salah and Dembele compared last season, because we'll show you that Salah scored more goals and provided more assists. There we go. Crucially, he won just one trophy. I mean, it was the Premier League. It wasn't just any old trophy, whereas Dembele won 3 trophies. But this is an individual award, not a team award. So how come Dembele...
But I think it's obviously down to certain parts of the criteria, etc. You can look at, if you go on individual numbers, you look at 32 goals to 29, 22 assists to 14 assists, but then the trophies 1 to 3. I think the biggest one is the PSG won the Champions League. That's the biggest one. And from where PSG have been as a team, as much as it's an individual award, as a team, it's all been about the superstar, etc. Dembele's been the one to kind of grab that team and take it forward. He has been the standout performer on the international stage away from English football.
I've got the criteria you've got is individual and decisive performance, goals, assists, statistics, influence on the game, and consistency throughout the season.
Yeah, but I'm on that, and I agree. And Salah ticks all them. Salah also ticks all them. But I just think the Champions League is the one that tilts it the other way for Dembele, and that's why he's won.
Well, this is why we're going to get on to whether the Premier League is undervalued, because that argument that Dembele won the Champions League as well as the French League Cup double, but if you take it into the women's vote, Arsenal won the Champions League and Alessia Russo, I'm talking about here, by the way, won the Champions League and won the Euros with England, but she was 3rd. So it doesn't seem consistent.
But I think when it always comes around to these kind of awards, there's never really that consistency. And when certain players tick the criteria and you think, yeah, they should win it, ultimately they don't. So where we're going about the men's game regarding winning the Champions League, and on the international stage, and in the women's game, that's something that's obviously not happened, because we win the Champions League and win the Euros and still don't win Ballon d'Or.
So that's English football with the Premier League and WSL. With the Premier League, now Rodri did win it last season, in fairness. However, Spain had won the Euros. Yeah. Before that, you've got to go to Cristiano Ronaldo, who won it when he was at Manchester United in 2008. And then before that, you've got to go all the way back to Michael Owen when he won it when he was at Liverpool in 2001. So why is the Premier League not seen as valuable, as important to win as other competitions around Europe?
To the Ballon d'Or, yes. Like, I think everybody that watches football and takes a keen interest knows that the Premier League is the best league in the world. I think everybody knows that. But when it comes down to that individual award, it seems like we do get brushed off, and I don't see the reason why. But like I said, when have you heard like someone from England or an English player kind of say, right, my dream is to win the Ballon d'Or? It's more of the foreign players saying, look, Ballon d'Or's the one trophy that we'd love to win, that's what I want to win, where don't really come from English players or English mindset, really.
In terms of, again, the Premier League, Arsenal, they reached the semi-finals of the Champions League. OK, they didn't win it, but they reached the semi-finals. In the Europa League, it was an all-English final when Tottenham beat Manchester United. Chelsea also won the Europa Conference League as well. But only 2 players from the Premier League make up the top 20. The other one, by the way, was Cole Palmer. So you've got Salah in 4th, Cole Palmer in 8th. See, that doesn't seem fair either, because English clubs were dominating the rest of Europe, and Arsenal did reach the semi-finals of the Champions League.
But I think we're dominating European football, and you can see that with Chelsea in there, Tottenham and Man United, and Arsenal get into the semi-final.
Club World Cup as well, Chelsea.
Yeah, of course.
Bring that in.
But when we're going on to them European competitions, let's be clear and straight to the point here. Conference League and the Europa League combined don't make up the Champions League. It don't matter how you look at it. They generally don't. So, yeah, Chelsea won the Conference League. Look at the teams they played to get there, and they won. Fantastic. Tottenham and Man United win the Europa League, and they're in the final. No, that's past, because I think what overshadows that is their league form and what happened last year. The Champions League is where clubs want to be and teams want to win.
Well, on our Sky Sports News X account, we are asking the question, does the Ballon d'Or matter? And see what the viewers are saying. And wow, 77% are saying no, it doesn't matter. Is that a bit of a surprise? Well, obviously not, because you don't think
it isn't. And also, to pick up on that, had Danny Murphy say yesterday that they didn't really celebrate when Michael Owen won the Ballon d'Or. He come into the training ground with it. They give him like a round of applause and then just got on with it. I think that's just the mindset of English teams, I think.
It's quite interesting. Right, well, Sky Sports have partnered with Finalysis, an app where passionate fans share their opinions on their club. If you want to represent your club, scan that QR code there or visit the Sky Sports app. We can speak to Liverpool fan Abigail Rudkin now on this situation with Mo Salah and the Ballon d'Or. Abigail, hello again. Let's straight to it. Has Salah been robbed?
Yeah, well, I think fourth's a complete joke. How does Mo Salah finish fourth? He literally has one of his best seasons ever. He's done this consistently for 8 years at Liverpool at the top level. He's 33. I don't understand how he just keeps being disregarded in these ways. It's absolutely ridiculous. And like you say, it can come down to the Champions League, whether you win it, and we did go out to PSG. That's the top and bottom of it. But the year we won the Champions League, Van Dijk should have won it, and he didn't. And it just feels as though we're sort of disregarded in different ways. And I know, does the Ballon d'Or really matter is another argument, and I'd say no, but it means a lot to Mo Salah. He mentions it in interviews all the time, and it is something that he wants as a personal accolade. And I think the Ballon d'Or is meant to be about personal performance, but it's coming down to whether your team's won the Champions League. At the end of the day, the French league is not of the quality of the Premier League, in my opinion. Mo Salah goes and wins the league with a new manager, basically carries that team, getting as many goals as he does, goal contributions and assists, wins Playmaker of the season, wins Player of the season, PFA Player of the season. He gets all these personal accolades, but then he gets fourth. He's not even in the top three. It just feels... It feels like a disgrace as a Liverpool fan for him to only finish fourth.
Like Abigail, he couldn't have done no more, right? That's clear to see on the pitch, goals and assists and what he's done for Liverpool. He couldn't have done no more. He ticked all the boxes to either win it, come third, top three, definitely not fourth or anything side of that. I just think ultimately it does come down to the Champions League. And I just go for it. Dembele ticks all the boxes. They're similar to Mo Salah, not to the stats or to the number of goals or the assists, etc. And then the only one that's different is the Champions League. And I feel like that is the most dominant thing. I know you argue about when Virgil should have won it back in 2019. Person that win it, Lionel Messi. Whenever he's won it, nobody's ever argued that he shouldn't have won it. So it's like a tough one. I just think Premier League players... and the Premier League, coming down to that individual award, has always been disregarded because you just have to look all the way back to when the last player had won it from the Premier League.
Yeah, but you say that, but then Cole Palmer finishes 8th. Like, he didn't have a better season than Kvaratskhelia, Kane, there's other players like that, even Van Dijk. Why
But they ain't worried
Cole
about
Palmer
finishing 8th, Gary. Like, in that, Abigail, the only one you want to win it, don't you? Like, the rest is almost irrelevant.
But I can't understand how someone like Virgil van Dijk then finishes 28th. It feels ridiculous, and it just makes me disregard the whole thing. For Virgil van Dijk to win the Premier League with Liverpool in the manner that he did, to then finish 28th, Mo Salah to finish 4th. The moment I saw Van Dijk had finished 28th, I thought Salah's got no hope here.
That's our mindset, isn't it? Like, for us, I think that's the English mentality. Like, if we don't come first, second or third, it's like, all right, that's fine. Or if you see, like you say, Virgil van Dijk finishing 28th, you're like, well, how has this managed to happen? Surely he is not there. He should be higher up than it. That's obvious to everybody to see, really.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I'm not arguing that Dembele shouldn't have won it. Fair enough, he had an amazing season. It's fine. I think he probably should have won it. I think it was really close between him and Salah. But at the end of the day, how does Yamal get second if he wasn't the age that he was? I don't think he'd be getting second. Vitinha gets third. It makes no sense to me why Mo Salah finishes 4th. It's just, after the season that he had, he's just so underrated, and he's so underappreciated by everyone else except Liverpool fans, in my opinion. And you see even Liverpool's Twitter, like you have shown, they posted a big thread of all Salah's amazing achievements, all his amazing goals and stuff like that from the last season to let him know that he is appreciated by us. But at the end of the day, he deserves it. He's been consistent for 8 years, and I don't understand how he continues to be overlooked outside of the Premier League again and again.
Yeah, to back you up there, what you just said there, there's a WhatsApp message on the bottom of the screen from someone called Mark. Says if Salah played for Barcelona or Real Madrid, he would have at least won 2 Ballon d'Ors. I was very surprised to hear that he'd never even made it into the top 3. You say that he's underrated, Salah. Are Liverpool also underrated around the rest of Europe? And is the Premier League either underrated or just being disregarded?
Well, possibly, but in my mind, I don't know if it's because I just go and see the Premier League every week. I see the Premier League as the best league in the world, and I thought that was pretty much a mutual thought around the world, considering we have such big watchers in the likes of America, you know, and other parts of the world. Everyone watches the Premier League, so I don't understand how we can be so underrated in these ways. I can't wrap my head around it, because to me, it's the best league in the world. And yeah, I think that comment is right. I think if Salah was playing for Barcelona or Madrid, he'd have won 2 Ballon d'Ors by now. I think that's spot on. I don't know if it is a Liverpool thing or what, but at the end of the day, I think that's probably it for me in the Ballon d'Or and deciding whether I actually care who wins it.
There's another message from a fan called Phil who says the Ballon d'Or is like the Eurovision Song Contest. The UK never gets the votes. Right, Charlie, you've got a point to make.
Yeah, but like with the Premier League, we are the biggest league in the world, and we track the best players. Like, we attract the best players worldwide.
Obviously not. We don't have Dembele.
Yeah, but everybody. Yeah, but everyone wants to play in the Premier League. Like, everybody wants to play in the league. And why don't Yamal? Because he plays at Barcelona. Dembele and Vitinha are at PSG, right? But the top players, other than Messi, didn't come, and obviously everyone's like, I wish Messi come to the Premier League. But we attract the best players. We are the best league in the world, and I just think, for me personally, I just think the Ballon d'Or and the Premier League, it don't fit. It don't matter what you do in the Premier League. You're not gonna win the Ballon d'Or.
Well, clearly not. But, you know, Salah's still got this season to play. He's got another season after this for Liverpool. I know he's 33, but who knows what could happen next. There's an AFCON coming up. I think if you do well for your country, you can also finish higher. But like I've said, for him to finish 4th this year, and obviously we've got Isak, Ekitike, other players like that who will be contributing to goals this season, I think it'll be more fairly shared around, to be honest, the contribution. So I don't know if he'll be able to go and do it next season, to go and win it. It felt like this was the opportunity for Mo to get it.
Exactly, because you're almost looking at it going, OK, well, what do I need to do now then? What do I need to do more to win exactly. The Ballon d'Or? And that, for me, what do you need to do more? Well, the only argument, easy one, is to go and win the Champions League. Like, that's it, and then replicate the numbers that we'd seen last year. And obviously, if he does that, then, listen, there's a serious argument that he should be winning the Ballon d'Or.
If we'll move away from the Ballon d'Or, but stay with Liverpool, Abigail, it's Southampton in the Carabao Cup tonight. So, I mean, you'll be thinking this will be the first of your quadruple.
Oh, here we go with the quadruple again. Just that word,
every
it's
week.
Just used on Liverpool all the time, every week. It's just this pressure's just put on us to win the quadruple. But at the end of the day, you know, Slot said you're not going to see Salah, Virgil, Ibu, players like that tonight. We're going to have to properly use the squad. So I think it's quite exciting that we'll get to see some of the other players. You know, we've got the likes of Leone that we haven't seen at centre-back, who's only 18, but we paid a lot of money for him. I think we'll see him tonight. Get Frimpong a little bit more game time. And I think Isak will probably get a full 90 minutes, which is probably a little bit sad for players like Jadon Danns, who are looking for game time for Liverpool, but that's how good this squad is. So can we go and win a quadruple? Yes, we can, but I'm not putting that pressure on us yet. It's just a word that's just used against Liverpool all the time to just add this pressure onto us more than anyone else. I'm just going one game at a time. The fact that we're literally 5 points clear in the Premier League right now, and we're not going to be taking our foot off the gas anytime soon. It feels like we're in 3rd gear at the minute. I can see us going as far as we can in most competitions, but I don't want to say it too soon.
I just see Liverpool, like you're saying, there can be squad players, and he's mentioned 4 or 5 that are not going to play, but that just shows the strength and depth that he has. Like, had Isak was on the bench, 125, Virtus on the bench, 115. Talk about Frimpong going into play also. I know you've got about the youngsters, Jadon Danns looking for game time, but that just shows, for me, how strong Liverpool are, but also that's the competition now Jadon Danns is up against. Like, it's not a given for youngsters to be given opportunities in the league, because starters or known starters in the first team are actually not starting. They're on the bench, and they need minutes also to get up to speed as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happens when you spend as much money as Liverpool have. You're going to have players that are just sitting there that need game time. The fact that we've got Ekitike, who's playing absolutely amazing, and Alexander Isak to come in, it's the thing of dreams for Liverpool fans, to be honest. But it's very different from what we had with Jurgen, because Klopp always loved to have the young lads play these games. You know, the youngsters won us a final that time against Chelsea, so there's that whole thing around it. Arne Slot's not like that at all. If players need minutes and, you know, the first team players, he's just going to give them the minutes. The kids haven't got as much of a chance, I don't think. I think he's decided he's making his own sort of, you know, the whole Galactico
That's football,
thing.
Abigail. That's football, and you've got to earn the opportunity. It's not a given scenario where you'd be like, so I can leave a couple of players out, because that's part and parcel of it. And what Jurgen done with the younger players and giving them the opportunity, was amazing. But they didn't have the strength and depth that Liverpool have now, where it just shows now they've got to do more, almost to get into them plans of being part of the Cup team or even on the bench in the Premier League.
Yeah, and it's the best position for us to be in, to be honest. What more can we ask for as Liverpool fans, to have these sort of players? The fact that I'm going to go to Anfield tonight and probably watch 90 minutes of Alexander Isak is just unbelievable. Yeah. You know, this early on in that competition. What more can you ask for?
Yeah, Abigail, great to speak to you. Thank you.
Thanks.
First look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers, and joining us are the Athletics' Carl Anker and Isan Khan from the Mail. Welcome along to you both. We'll hear from you shortly, but let's quickly run you through the back pages as we have them. Let's start off with the back page of the Eye. Injured Jacks in England squad for Ashes series. Yes, Will Jacks named as a spin bowling all-rounder in part of the batting unit, part of the bowling unit. And you can see the picture there. Ugo Ekitike, just as he scored for Liverpool, their winner against Southampton, and just before he took his shirt off, which got him sent off. Right, back page of the Mirror looks like this. Stars and gripes. US star Thomas admits that rowdy New York fans could give home team a rough ride if they are losing. Yes, the Ryder Cup just days away now. You can see that at the top, smart Alex fires for red. So Alexander Isak getting his first goal since his British transfer record move from Newcastle. And there's some interesting stories involving North London clubs on the right-hand side. We'll get into those. Back page of The Guardian looks like this. England picked 5 90-mile-an-hour bowlers for Ashes battle. But not Chris Woakes, as I mentioned before. And Dickie Bird lived for cricket and the game loved him back. Yes, plenty of warm tributes towards Dickie Bird, who has passed away at the age of 92. Back page of the Times, or the front page of the Times sports page, is this. Dickie Bird again in that obituary there, 1933 to 2025. And also you can see on the right-hand side, related to the England squad, Pope ditched as vice-captain. Yes, Ollie Pope not with that position. Instead, it's gone to Harry Brook, who already captains the white ball cricket sides. Back page of The Sun looks like this. So you can see Alexander Isak with that goal celebration as he scored against Southampton. But you can see at the bottom there, Frank, we'd love to give Harry a perfect ending and use a potential release clause to buy back Harry Kane from Bayern Munich. Front page of the Telegraph Sports section, yes, you can see Dickie Bird there when he was officiating 66 test matches there. And you can see on the right-hand side, Brook takes vice-captain role for Ashes as Pope axed. And finally, the Metro looks like this. Pure Macul joy, horrible abuse warning, but also we were talking a little bit about Dickie Bird there. Cricket warning for great Dickie Bird there on the left-hand side. That's the back page of the Metro. All right, so let's start off with Liverpool, shall we? Just about getting through their Carabao Cup third round tie against Southampton at Anfield, doing so by beating them by 2-1. Let's have a look at the back page of the Eye, shall we? So another late goal, but unfortunately Ugo Ekitike perhaps didn't know about the rules in terms of taking his shirt off. He had been booked before and then got booked a second time. In terms of just Liverpool and their season so far, though, Carl, I mean, you know, they're making a habit of this, aren't they? Scoring late, getting the win.
Absolutely. This is a Liverpool team that we know wanted to sign Mark Guehi on deadline day, but couldn't due to difficulties with deal sheets and whatnot. So they aren't perhaps with the defensive reinforcements they have. However, when you've got players like Hugo Ekitike to come off the bench for Alexander Isak, who started and scored in the first half, they are always going to have a puncher's chance of winning games. So the fun thing for a neutral is that they are good, but still not invulnerable. The good thing for Liverpool fans is that they are not yet fully settled and in fifth gear, and yet they're still blowing everyone away. And I suppose the less interesting thing, if you're a rival, is you're wondering, are they ever going to slip up?
Yes, I mean, this is it, isn't it? You know, they call it form of champions when you win like this without necessarily playing well or pulling up too many trees. But you're right to point out their, you know, prolific front line now, and you know, it promises to be so with Isak now off the mark. Let's have a look at the back page of the Mirror. You can see him at the top there. Smart Alex fires 4 reds. Ihsan, I mean, we know that he's had a little bit of an injury. He's been away on international duty with Sweden. But how would you assess now his first few steps as a Liverpool player and finally getting that first goal?
Overall in the game today, he was fairly quiet, but the main thing is he's off the mark. I'll be absolutely delighted. Just to score, it doesn't matter the opposition. It's just getting off the mark. He has that big price tag of £125 million attached to his head. So from here, you can really kick on. And Liverpool deserve credit here in the way that they've slowly bedded him in. He's obviously not had a pre-season because he had that issue, that long-running saga over the summer with going on strike, forcing his move away from Newcastle. So Liverpool have been careful here in how they've introduced him and bedded him in. Obviously, Atletico Madrid last week, they took him off in the second half. Here today, he scores, he's off the pitch at half-time. So Liverpool deserve credit here in the way that they've handled this. And from here on in, hopefully, for his sake and Liverpool's sake, you can really kick on and start to go up further in levels in the games to come.
Let's just go back to the eye, and we mentioned Hugo Ekitike briefly there before. I mean, yes, a goal, and it was. I tell you what, the Federico Chiesa touch and then just laying it off to him, that was special. Easy goal for Ekitike, but how silly was it, Carl? You know, to get himself sent off, and now he will be suspended for the game against Crystal Palace at the weekend.
Absolutely, a suspension that will ruin many a fantasy Premier League manager's plans for the weekend. I quite enjoyed Jeremy Frimpong running up to Hugo Ekitike after the goal and going, "What on earth have you done here?" So Ekitike started the season very, very strongly. He is a phenomenal striker, and it makes a lot of sense that it wasn't just Liverpool were interested in him in this summer, but also I believe Chelsea were interested in him. And I think Manchester United had a little sniff before they realised he would be quite expensive. So this suspension opens up more space for Isak to get minutes into his legs and start and possibly even play longer than 45 minutes. But yeah, an unnecessary snafu for a Liverpool machine that seems to be just growing from strength to strength.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it is a significant bit of news, this, because obviously Crystal Palace have started the season well under Oliver Glasner. Let's go back to let's go to the Sun now and talk a little bit about Harry Kane. Thomas Frank, we'd love to give Harry a perfect ending because there's news that he could have a release clause that kicks into his Bayern Munich contract at the end of the season, that he could be signed for £56.7 million, Tom Barkley writes in his piece. Ihsan, the change of manager, I mean, here's the thing, I mean, you know, Thomas Frank has made it very clear he would like to see Harry Kane back at Spurs. Would Kane fit in a Thomas Frank side?
Of course, Thomas Frank would love Harry Kane back, but it'd be absolute madness for Kane to want to move back with the position he's in now. He's at Bayern Munich. He's scored, I think it's 95 goals in 102 appearances for the club. They've got the likes of Serge Gnabry, Diaz in attack. He's in a great place here to win real silverware. If he goes back to Spurs, that's not going to be likely anytime soon in terms of silverware, it looks like, compared to Bayern anyway. So yes, from a romantic side, you could say he's 34 and ending his career there would have that romantic tale to it. But from a purely rational point of view, it'd make absolutely no sense in any way.
In terms of how far he is behind Alan Shearer's Premier League all-time goal-scoring record, 47 goals. You'd imagine if you're someone like Harry Kane, you could get that in 2 to 3 seasons. He's 32 years of age. How much of a pull do you think that would be, Carl, that individual motivation?
Oh, yeah, I think it's there. I do believe the two may have joked about it in the past, Shearer and Kane. Obviously, they've crossed paths more than once. But as has already been noted, Harry Kane's in a very good place at Bayern Munich. He's in a football team that are likely to win the Bundesliga, probably at a canter, and they are going to make a deep run into the Champions League places. This Tottenham Hotspur team is good, but also it's quite young. And I mean that in both senses of the word, in that they have a lot of young players, and also these young players are still bedding in together. So for Kane to swerve and come back, I think he might need a little bit more time and a little bit more guarantees that this Tottenham Hotspur team, particularly now Daniel Levy is left, that is going to be closer to winning big trophies and more accolades other than just the Premier League goal scoring record. Because also, and I feel I should always bring this up, Alan Shearer has also scored goals in the old Division 1. So it's not quite all Kane's.
Yeah, OK, all right. Yeah, I see the point you're making there, Carl. All right, let's get back to the Mirror. And we mentioned there were some interesting stories involving North London sides, but let's balance things up. We talked about Spurs, let's talk about Arsenal. And friend of the show, John Cross, has written a piece, the headline of which is Mick Goes on Attack. Mikel Arteta has laughed off accusations that he plays with the handbrake on and insisted his philosophy is the most attacking in English football. And quotes there, Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher, claiming that Arsenal went safety first against Manchester City. What's your take on the story, Hassan?
So I was at the press conference today. In terms of his demeanour, he seemed completely baffled by the whole thing. He even said that he hadn't read any of it, and he had to rely on the Arsenal media officer to relay him the comments that have been flying around about the handbrake and whatnot. I think it's undisputable that on the weekend against Man City on Sunday, that his team were cautious. Manchester City in parts, they were there for the taking. And if you look at the starting 11, starting a midfield three of Zubimendi, Merino and Rice, when you've got the likes of Eze and Martinelli obviously scored the equaliser in the end on the bench, it was a cautious approach, and in many ways, from an Arsenal perspective, he probably will look back on that and learn from it. Because at the end of the day, it's these games where, when it comes to the end of the season, the points dropped here and there, they all matter in the end.
Carl, your thoughts on this? I mean, Mikel Arteta, it's funny because there's a few Premier League managers who, at the start of the season, have just bared their teeth a little bit or showed a little bit of combative form. You know, for example, we had Arne Slot saying, we don't time waste. Everyone else does. But, 3 minutes was right for the end of the Merseyside derby. And Mikel Arteta here just fighting his corner.
Yes, as is his right to be. As a journalist, it's always a little bit more interesting if the manager gives a little bit of pushback and space, makes for better copy. I would dispute the claim that Mikel Arteta plays the most attacking football in the Premier League, if not just because Ange Postecoglou was returned, and we know how he likes to play football. So I watched that game against Manchester City, and it felt like two managers taking a leaf or a page out of Jose Mourinho's book. And I mean that as a compliment for both of them. I think 1-1 was a fair result. This Arsenal team is good. They're very, very robust now, and they're going to be very, very hard to beat. However, considering the points dropped to Liverpool and now against Manchester City, their margin for error to win the league title is thin. I'm sure they can do it. I think when you have a player like Eze, you can come in for someone like Odegaard, and when you've got this situation now where Madueke's just been announced injured with a knee issue, and Saka can come straight in, and you've also got Nwaneri to come off, they've got options. And I think that options and resilience mean they will be there or thereabouts come May. But, I mean, winning the Premier League is hard. And it looks like this Arteta is building them to be a hard team so they can last the distance.
Yes, and it's certainly just when you mentioned before the defensive solidity, the likes of Gabriel Magalhaes and William Saliba, and of course Christian Mosquera they signed. It seems like they really are shoring things up at the back. OK, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning's newspapers, including this in the Metro. Pure Mackel joy. Yes, our Ryder Cup build-up continues, and we're back in a couple of minutes.